Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on a special live stream here on the 21st anniversary of 9/11. I thought it was important to have kind of an open panel discussion about that. And we've invited some friends and some really great researchers and experts in the field of 9/11. And we are joined, as always, by my co host, Eric. Eric, how's it going, man?
Good, good. Nice Sunday and nice light stream. Talk about 9/11 21 years later.
Yeah, exactly. We think it's still important. And we're also joined by the host of Naturalist Capitalist and the Four Horsemen, Mr. Reed Coverdale. Reed, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Not
you
sure
just
what
did.
I'm going to be able to add, but I'll try.
Well, you and Adam just did a really great stream on your channel, so thanks for doing that and telling everyone to come here and also making the schedule work with Adam because we kind of accidentally double booked, but it worked out. And we're also joined by Adam Fitzgerald. Adam, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me, guys. Great to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like now with 9/11 researchers or anybody who's willing to politically talk about 9/11 in a way that's more outside of the mainstream or what the media covers every year, it's important and it's incumbent on us to talk about it near or on the anniversary because that's when there seems to be a lot of attention, given to it. So I think having a stream to talk about it is a worthwhile thing, even on the day of, especially on the day of. So one of the things I wanted to touch on tonight, what's really struck me recently is talking to younger people who weren't even around when 9/11 happened and their perception of it. I have a very close friend who has a teenage daughter, and I was over the house recently, and I just kind of mentioned, she's in high school. I said, how are you taught about 9/11, about the day of 9/11? Like, what do the teachers say? What does that look like? And she said, they don't really say much of anything. So there's a whole generation of people who weren't even born, when it happened. And I feel like the memory holding and the really important information is going to totally slip away from that generation. And it just seems like the schools aren't really doing a great job. I mean, they've never done a great job at teaching anything historical accurately or with a different perspective. But it seems like something as important as 9/11, the further we get away from it, the less and less people know. What do you think about that, Adam?
I'm a little bit surprised at it because there's the question is very interesting because I never really thought about like how would 9/11 be viewed in the public sphere or in the educational sphere, and I would think that would be pretty receptive because for one, it basically is something that does touch on everybody. It's a very global incident and a national incident, more importantly, a national incident, and basically it is a very morbid story, whereas like high school kids would be a little bit more interested in like learning about it. Until recently, I was made aware of a video about I think it was college kids or something like that that basically were talking about 9/11, and to my horror, uh, they didn't even know who attacked us, and I'm like, my God, they don't even know the basics. So that adds a lot of new insight into how do we teach 9/11 to even high school students, much less kids, which we have to be careful there. So I couldn't tell you basically. I don't know how we could go about it and how we can basically reach high school children. Like, where would you start? First of all, what could be taught and whatnot? That's a good question because I don't know really, to tell you the truth. And what actually could we be allowed to teach?
I was just going to say, yeah, teachers. I mean, if a teacher tries to be based or tries to at least show something that's outside of the accepted narrative, what's going to happen to them? Like what kind of ramifications are they going to have? I mean, Reed, your old man is I believe a history or an English teacher in public school.
English teacher.
He's an English teacher. Have you ever talked to him about any of this or how his students or where he teaches, how they deal with that?
Not really. I mean, we had just moved to Sunapee when 9/11 happened. It was his first year teaching there, and he didn't really I mean, he was kind of focused on the new job, and it didn't really hit him as the relevant topic that it was, because when he first heard it, he thought it was just an accident, like a lot of people did when it was just the first plane, and then the second plane hit, and he still hadn't heard a ton about it. But then by the mid-afternoon, everyone was watching the television, and then it was like, oh man, this is kind of serious. I actually remember that was the only year before high school that I was in public school. I was homeschooled until high school. But second grade, I actually went to public school, and I was 7 years old when it hit. And we went through the whole day of school in elementary school, and then took the bus over to the high school where my dad was. And we didn't have television back then. We just had we didn't have cable or anything at our house. So we just watched the replay of the towers getting hit and falling down in the library at the high school, and that was how I saw it. But for me, the biggest thing with 9/11 is, there's all the hashtag never forget, but I don't really see the value in never forgetting if you never learn, or if you never, change. And we haven't changed at all. I read, I was in Concord today, and at an anti-war rally. It was a Defend the Guard rally, and I read Osama bin Laden's fatwa. And after I read it, I was like, how much of that is different now? He was basically complaining that we were occupying Muslim lands, sanctioning Muslim nations, and had undying support for Israel and all their aggression to surrounding countries. I was like, okay, if that's what they were upset about in 98, 24 years later, we really haven't changed anything at all. And now we've done the same thing with Russia that we did to Osama bin Laden. It's not like Putin and people, his predecessors, like the Russians in general, have been very explicit. Look, if you keep pushing us, we're going to do something eventually. And now they have. And now this one we haven't completely fucked up yet, but China is the same way. Xi Jinping has told Biden, do not play with fire. You're going to regret it in relation to Taiwan. And we don't care. Nancy Pelosi flew over there anyway, still are, sending aircraft carriers into the South China Sea. So I don't know. I don't think we've learned anything. I mean, we're just repeating all the same mistakes, but instead of taking on Al-Qaeda or even Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever, now we're taking on Russia and China. So it's just like, Jesus Christ. I don't know.
It's completely homicidal. Yeah, it's completely psychopathic and homicidal, isn't it? I would agree, man. I don't know that we've really learned anything. And I think part of that problem is how the younger generations are taught about something as important as 9/11. Obviously, 9/11 is our generation's, I know it's cliche, Pearl Harbor or whatever type big event that really defined, it's certainly the last 21 years of all of our lives. So it's too bad. It's an injustice that happened, and it's an injustice the way that a lot of people understand the event and just the basic facts of it. Like Adam, that video there that I think you were saying Darren Harvey posted it about those college kids who were probably 18, 19, 20 years old who just have no clue about even the basics of it. And it just shows you, 21 years, it wasn't really that long ago. It feels like yesterday in a lot of respects. But for people who were that age, that might as well have been, it's before they were born. So it might as well have been a whole different universe, or lifetime.
Yeah, I think so. It's also a discerning problem because we're washed with disinformation online, right? So you would think that we wouldn't be, but we unfortunately we are. And at the same time, we're trying to obtain information. I always said that we're fighting a war on two fronts. One is a war for disinformation against disinformation, which is a time waster. And one is a war for information, which we're trying to obtain from the federal government, which is a worthy war, a war that we're trying to obtain the truth in. And what happened is in between, there's a lot of people getting caught in between both of these battles. And so it's like creating these generations of people who are either poorly misinformed because they're not getting the information, or disinformed by the disinformation that is out there. And if you're not careful enough to discern what is fact from fiction, because you need a lot of time to discern when you fact check things, and a lot of people have, they're married or They have a job, maybe even 2 jobs. So they don't have much time, like an hour or two. It's time is of the essence, especially if you have kids. Forget it, it's even worse off. And the powers that be know that. And so they play into that. That's why people who have like huge platforms in these fringe areas of the viral media, they're not stopped by like the CIA and the NSA because they're doing the work for them, whether they realize it or not. And of course, the federal government is using the media as an extension of just showing you the basic bare minimum of 9/11. Like as you said before, Reed said before, never forget. Never forget. Well, you can't forget what you don't learn. And what happens is over time, you basically either have a bunch of people that don't know what really happened on 9/11, or you have a bunch of people that are basically thinking they know what happened, or basically poorly misinformed. And so this is what creates that generational problem that we saw with JFK. It's unfortunately happening here with 9/11. And I think that's a problem that I'm trying to rectify, but I'm a small guy, so I don't know.
Well, that's it. And you're exactly right, Adam. They see a meme or hear something. Oh, do you know about the trillions of dollars that was missing at the Pentagon? And they see it on a meme of Donald Rumsfeld, and they don't have any context or any idea. So that's one of the things that if you're a serious researcher of geopolitics and 9/11 and the war machine and empire, that you're up against, because you're absolutely right. A lot of those people, they're doing the jobs for the intelligence agencies in the FBI. They don't even need COINTELPRO anymore. They got Twitter. They got useful idiots on social media who just, as you said so many times, Adam, did you know a third building fell that day? You said that to me when we were down in Virginia. And it's just man, you think people think they're being edgy and they're telling you something you've never heard of about World Trade Center Building 7, and you lead with that shit, man. That's the stuff that makes you look the most insane and crazy. And you're doing the bidding of the intelligence agencies. When I know the truth about 9/11, another building fell that day that wasn't hit by a plane. Meanwhile, you're ignoring all the amazing and real information that you focus on, that we focus on, that Dawson focuses on, that is the real serious stuff that people need to know about. And the good stuff gets lost and swept up in all the bullshit.
Right. Now, also to add on that, if I may, Eric, is that there are, like, unfortunately, after 21 years, you'd think we have like a bunch of people that we referred to. Unfortunately, I could probably name maybe 6 or 7 people I would actually recommend, with a few of them hopefully coming here tonight. But I can name you 50, 60 people that I would never recommend. And this is the attention that's being paid. Now they had a real big head start. We're talking about 2002 when they started pumping out like no plane hitting the Pentagon and stuff like that. CGI airplanes and all this stuff basically was watched by the mass public. And like I said, creating that generational approach of misinformed people. What we're trying to do is basically right the ship, so to speak. And so we're fighting against an avalanche, but the effort is there and the effort is noble. But like I said, it is a war that we can't afford because it takes time. And time is not of the essence, because with each passing year past the initial date of 9/11, these people are getting away with murder, literally murder.
Yeah, exactly. They continue to get away with it, and the really good information gets memory hold, and then people move on with their lives. And I remember I was talking to my uncle who really pointed me in the direction of certainly urban movers and a lot of really critical information about Israel very early on. And I said, yeah, he said, well, what are you guys up to on your podcast lately? I said, oh, we touch a little bit about the JFK assassination. And he was like, JFK assassination? You might as well be talking about the Lincoln assassination, and that speaks to the amount of time that goes by. But yeah, for tonight, I mean, I certainly, invited you guys. I invited Ray Nowosielski, who I think was one of the producers of Press for Truth, or was part of that. Yes, he was part of that. And that's, I point a lot of people who maybe aren't as familiar with this information to that film, 9/11 Press for Truth, which I believe came out in 2006. And that just, that details the family members and the family steering committee who attended all the 9/11 commission hearings. And even before that, they were the ones who had to friggin' they lost a loved one or a spouse on 9/11, and they had to drive down from New Jersey or New York down to Washington, D.C. to try to lobby members of Congress to even investigate the attacks, because the Bush administration did not want to have an investigation into 9/11. And it was the family members who really pushed for that, for the creation of some kind of commission. And we can get into the commission. Obviously, it was deeply flawed, and I think it was a whitewash, and they ignored all kinds of stuff, or they knew about information and they chose not to talk about it. But they really were the the original 9/11 truth movement was the family members, and it's become so diluted, and people have pet theories that you try to tell people this information, they don't even want to go near it because they're like, oh, you think this theory or that theory, and that's part of the problem too.
Yeah, and it's a problem that we can't afford. I mean, I love how you bring up the Jersey widows, as they were called, that they were the original truthers, and they never called themselves truther either. They just called themselves, what they were by their names. And Mindy Kleinberg was one, and I always forget some of their names.
Lori Van Auken, Patty Zaza, Mindy Kleinberg, and Monica Gabrielle, I believe.
Oh, very right. Now, listen, if they were Arabic names, I probably remember them, but American names, I can't.
Dude, your command on the Arabic names, man. And there's another aspect of this I want to touch on. I'm probably going to butcher this. Isam Ghazawi down in Sarasota, who owned that house that 3 of the hijacker pilots were partying in. I want to get to that, but I want to stay on the Jersey. They were dubbed the Jersey Girls by the press, which is that's like a sexy name or some kind of name to get attention. But let me tell you, these ladies all lost their husbands in the towers, I believe. And you want to talk about sharp, well-researched, information and questions. They said after the whole deal that not only were 70% of their questions not answered, they weren't even asked. And these were the people who actually fought to put this thing together. And when they saw that the Bush administration wanted to put Henry Kissinger as the head of the commission, they were like, hell no, you're not going to get Henry Kissinger. Let's talk about his Saudi clients. And then they recoiled. But they replaced him with Philip Zelikow, who was a national security hawk, someone who was promoting war with Iraq and co-wrote a book with Condoleezza Rice. So he wasn't much better, a guy who peddles in myths. So it shows you from the get-go that the thing was fucked from Jump Street, and that there was never really a chance or an intention to get to the truth, with the 9/11 Commission. And they were underfunded. The staff was being directed by Zelikow where to look, and I think another guy named Eric May. Oh, you're going to look at this area, but you're not going to look at this area. And you had a guy, Max Cleland, who resigned, calling it a national disgrace.
Yeah, look, and it just seemed like after that, Eric, the Jersey widows and what they were able to accomplish, immediately after you saw all this really outlandish theories that took precedent over the truth movement ever so slowly in the beginning. And then with the film Loose Change and In Plain Sight in 2006, they basically purported that, some of the hijackers may be alive, that a plane really didn't hit the Pentagon. And that all came from the original purporters of this. That's the French author Thierry Masson, who wrote the book Le Pentgate, and of course Alex Jones and Jim Fetzer and Ace Baker and Morgan Reynolds and John Lear. And who did the media interview? Did they interview Paul Thompson? Did they interview Kevin Fenton? No, they interviewed who? They interviewed
Reynolds.
Kevin Barrett, Morgan Reynolds,
Jim Fetzer,
and all the real people pushing these ridiculous theories. And what did this do? This basically said that the truth movement is full of nut jobs, and they're all like this because they dared question the government narrative. And if you dare question the government narrative, you're a nut job just like them. And basically, not everybody's just like them. We got questions too. I like to think I'm not a nut job, or you, Mike, or you, Reed. I mean, we're just
I'm a
regular
nut job.
people. Oh, you are? You really?
Just not about this stuff, just different stuff.
Yeah, and you mentioned Loose Change. I did invite Jason Burmis, and he responded and said he's probably going to be doing a stream. But I said, even if you can pop in for 15 or 20 minutes, we'd love to discuss any area of 9/11 you want. Obviously, Adam, you have your disagreements with Burmis. I don't agree with Burmis on everything, but he is an old friend of mine, and hopefully he joins. But
I'd love to have him on. I don't, I'm not here to denigrate him. Do I have critiques of his points? Absolutely.
Sure.
But I'm not in this for contrarian style themed debates. I'm not in this to make like money off of anybody. What I do basically when I created my own viral media is basically show information, and I'm not showing anything that new or anything. It's public information, but it's the information that is actually blanketed by these outlandish conspiracy theories. And it's unfortunate because we can know some truths. We can't know all truths, but we can know some truths.
Yeah, definitely. And Adam, we have a super chat question here for you from JC. Thank you, JC. I was pleasantly surprised to see Adam on Infinite Fringe's 9/11 Roundtable, but was disappointed you didn't get the chance to debate Richard Gage on there. How'd you feel overall about that discussion, Adam?
Actually, I was invited by Billy Ray Valentine. If you know who he is, he's known in the truth movement. I actually met him today on Ground Zero physically for the first time, and I knew about him. I didn't know much about him. I knew that Richard Gage, he interviewed Richard Gage, and that I reached out to him, and basically he met me first because I was actually on a show called with Ricky Varandas, and I forgot the name of the show that he was chairing. And Ricky Varandas actually has been around a very long time. And
is that the Gathering of the Unwanted or Ripple Effect?
Great. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, that's right. So I was invited on that show, but I wasn't originally supposed to be on that show because that show was supposed to have Brian McGlinchey on. And that was, I think, a year ago on the anniversary. McGlinchey couldn't go, and he asked me to replace him, and I did, and I brought Nelson Martins with me. Jason Burmis was on there for a little bit. He actually left, and then this Billy Ray Valentine said, well, who is this Adam Fitzgerald guy? I want to know more about him. But he didn't really get in contact. Fast forward a year later, I think it was a month and a half ago, he interviews Richard Gage, and I actually sent a comment to him saying, Gage didn't say, I just want to fill in some blanks that he missed, right? Or he got wrong. And he says, why don't you come on my show and talk about it? I said, well, absolutely, more than willing. So 2 months later, we're right near the anniversary. It was this week. And he says, hey, you remember me? You remember the show? I said, yeah, absolutely. So the night before, he sends me, he texts me, he says, oh, and by the way, I don't know how you are with Richard Gage. He's going to join us. And I was like, really? Oh my God, I can't believe he's going to have me on the stream. Richard Absolutely. Gage. I couldn't wait. And like a giddy little schoolgirl, I'm waiting in my bed, and I couldn't wait for this moment. And so the next day, I'm on this like in a waiting room for StreamYard, and there's like 5 people, and I'm like, wow, I think this is going to be like a 5-on-1 or something. And then Richard Gage shows up, and Richard Gage says hello to everybody, and then all of a sudden he looks at me, and he says, what's he doing here?
He goes, oh, fuck.
And he basically did this. Now, Billy Ray Valentine knows him for 6 years. And Richard Gage's face was to this real quick. Wow. And he looked at Billy Ray Valentine, and he said this. And I'm not joking. I'm not picking on Gage here.
Was this live, Adam?
But this actually was true.
Was this live when this happened?
No, it was not recorded.
It was
not recorded.
But
this, I was disappointed with Gage here. Now, I don't know him personally. It's not a personal attack. I don't know him personally. Yes, I vehemently disagree with his points. But he actually said this to Billy Ray Valentine. Either it's him or it's me. Make a choice. Like really demanding like that. The room was silent. And just like they didn't know what to do. So I said, all right, I'll tell you. I said, I'm going to leave, Billy. I said, you can always contact me. Richard Gage has like a conference tonight. Let him go on, let him talk and whatnot. And Billy said, hey, listen, I'm sorry. He was like really red-faced. And basically, Richard Gage says, I don't want him here because he attacks me. And I said, Mr. Gage, I don't attack you. I attack your points. And he says, no, you attacked me. And I didn't want to go further because I don't care for gossip and stuff. So I said, Billy, just you want me back on? It's fine. I leave. About an hour later, he invites me back on. And basically, we had a discussion. Now, Gage only talks about one thing. World Trade Center 7, World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7. That's it. Nothing else. He'll talk about COVID before he talks about 9/11.
Wow.
I come on, and basically for the next 40 minutes, they asked me about my thoughts. And all the kids said, what do you think about certain things of 9/11? It was like, turn on switch. I go on for the next 40 minutes. And it was a great discussion. They're all in the room and they're like, oh, this is fantastic. The stream ends. And then for the next hour and a half in the waiting room, some of them stood by and I told them about 13 different anomalies with 9/11 and they never heard of any of them.
You know what, Adam? That's something that's so refreshing about you, man. You don't get into the petty bullshit and the egos and the drama and all that. And that's one of the things I respect about you and your work so much. And that is needed. And that is needed in this. We're dealing with serious shit. And look, like I'll be the first. I'm a clown. I'm a comedian. I'm a joker. I'm not that serious. But this shit is serious. And the best information, Mike, as you always say, the cream's going to rise to the top. And all those people that you've mentioned before, Adam, we talked about them on our trip. We spent 20 hours in a little car together with Reed, which is 20 hours. I'll never soon forget Reed. I'll never forget it. But they had a lot of people had a head start ahead of Adam Fitzgerald and Nelson and serious researchers who aren't going to peddle bullshit and peddle fairy tales and disinformation. So, it's happening. You're putting out the best information. You're reading all the documents. You're presenting it to people, and it's having an impact, man. People are taking notice, and I bet you those people who were listening to you and the stuff that you said they didn't hear about it. I bet you afterwards, man, they were like, "Holy fuck, that was like a gut punch from that Adam Fitzgerald guy."
The kryptonite that Adam brings to a 9/11 kook conversation is Khalid al-Madar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. So.
Yeah.
It's funny, Reed, is that when I first started with 9/11 back in 2006, there was very few people out there speaking about it from the deeper geopolitical angle. And one website that I came across was the James Randi Educational Forum, JREF. And they would talk about physics and stuff. And these were like, brilliant minds. I'm like, okay, I'm intimidated by this. I'm not interested in that. Math and stuff that scares me. I'm more into the psychological angle. I'm more into the who done it and why. So I said, what? I don't know anything about 9/11. So I started studying about these people that were involved with the hijackers themselves, and it led me deeper into to the intelligence apparatus, and it led me into foreign policy aspect. And then it was a branch out effect. And 16 years later, here I am. But one thing that it did for me, and I'm not saying this is going to happen to you or anybody else, but for me it did. It basically dulled my senses and emotions. And I'm glad in a way it did, because I became very detached from the gossip and detached from the emotional diatribe. I'm very quick with a block sometimes, more probably that's a negative at times. But I don't suffer fools and I don't suffer nonsense, because one thing I saw with 9/11 was that a lot of people made a mockery of it by promoting these ridiculous theories. And right. I'm very straightforward, and I want to know what happened, because it's a serious event. And the only way we can get through to finding out what happened with 9/11 is to cut through all the bull crap and basically just deliver the information straightforward without any prejudices and biases or divisive worldviews behind it. Hey, if you don't like where this is going, if it's not Israel enough for you, or it's not Arabic enough for you, too damn bad. But you know what? It's a mixture of everything in between, which, could bring a lot of people together. But unfortunately, it's not. I mean, people love it simple. I'll tell you a quick story, just a real quick story. I was in our chat room one time. This is basically just tells you the mindset of some people. Ed Brotherton of We Are Change LA, basically author, he opened up a chat room, and he wanted two very prominent truthers to show up here. One from architects and engineers, and one who's involved with street activism, and he's all over the place. And he's a big voices in the truth movement. And I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to embarrass them. Well, anyway, Jed said, just listen to Adam, just for, he's going to tell you as much as he could in an hour. I had 51 minutes, and I told him everything from 1990 to 2001 in short order. The first question I got was from this person from Architects and Engineers, and the first question was, could you simplify it? I looked at this person and I said, I did. Now,
well, yeah, there's a lot of nuance that goes into this, Adam, as you know, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I was just saying, if I could simplify 9/11, I wouldn't have pulled most of my hair out and looked like, Vincent Price at this point physically, and through the stress and all that, and I wouldn't have like 80 books on my bookshelf outside about all these different topics. 9/11 is a complicated issue, and it's supposed to be, because it involves so many players, there's so many reasons, so many lies, and so many truths are being hidden from us. And then we got to make up our mind what to believe and what not to believe, and how to research and all that. Because if we just simplify 9/11, we're not getting any answers. And I unfortunately, yeah, it's a complicated issue, but we can know, like I said before, we can know some truths. You just got to put in some work. I'm not asking you. Look, I'll give you some motivation. I'm not a smart guy. I'm not an expert. I'm not a teacher. I'm a
disagree
student.
on both of those things. But
I'm a student. I'm a student of this affair, and I'm always learning something. And what I got over most people? Time. That's it. That's all I have.
Yeah, you have the time to really dig in and try and suss things out. And yeah, like we were saying earlier, the mainstream media hasn't done a good job at all at bringing people good information. But what's interesting to me is sometimes on a page 6 or a page 7, you do find some kernels of truth and some nuggets of information. And I mean, I hate to say it, but the New York Post had a great article like a year ago about 3 of the hijacker pilots and their doings down in Sarasota at that house I was alluding to earlier.
They had a great article about the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire recently, too.
I did see that. Yeah, but isn't it weird how rags like the New York Post and the friggin' Daily Mirror or Daily Mail, whatever the hell it's called, they had like the best information about Epstein and about some of the more salacious stuff with the hijackers. That's interesting, like with Muhammad Atta, when you're talking about his girlfriend down in Florida who was a stripper, Amanda Keller, and some of her stories, which Daniel Hopsiker dug up. That's why I wanted to invite him tonight. Didn't hear back from him. We've had him on the program before, and I think his work is invaluable. I mean, he gets into the nitty gritty on what was going on down in Florida. But yeah, I was looking at an article the New York Post put up, and they were talking about Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Shayhi, and Ziad al-Jarrah going to this house at this gated community that was owned by a Saudi businessman who was connected to the Saudi royal family. I met Isam Ghazawi, I'm sure I messed that name up, whose daughter, I think, lived there with her husband and maybe a child. And they were hosts to these hijackers. They were partying there. I mean, the house is swanky. I mean, it's on the market. It was on the market if you want to check it out, folks. It was like $600,000 they sold it for. But the family left the premises 2 weeks before the 9/11 attacks happened. So that leads me to believe that they knew something big was coming, or they were at least, the husband was probably part of the planning or logistical support, even peripherally. And then in 2003, they quietly go back and they sell the place on the market. And the FBI releases all this information in 2013. And then 7-8 years later, the New York Post just does some obscure article about it. Like, that's the kind of shit that sometimes gets through the goalposts. And for me, that's like earth-shattering great information, but you don't even really hear about it.
No, and I love that you bring this up, because it's such an obscure part of 9/11, and it's huge, because it actually is another avenue to the link to the Saudi kingdom. But let me go a little bit further about Isam Ghazawi.
Go into it, Adam.
Yeah, Isam Ghazawi is actually an advisor to a family member of King Fahd, who's the king of Saudi Arabia. And I think the name of the street on that Sarasota house is Escondido Drive. I just don't know the house number on it. But basically what happened was, in the year 2001, the FBI basically, after 9/11, went and subpoenaed some video records of the security gate leading up to the house. And what they found, something was very interesting. They found that a number of cars that were driven by some of these hijackers, like Muhammad Atta, Ziad Jarrah, Marwan al-Shayhi, Hamburg Cell, all the pilots, are basically visiting this individual named Abdul Aziz al-Hijj. Now, Abdul Aziz al-Hijj apparently had was married to the Ghazawi's daughter named
Her name was Anud. Yeah, I know that one.
Al-Hijj. And basically, she's married to Abdulaziz al-Hijj. Anud is basically the daughter of Ghazawi. And what happened was, just days before 9/11, I think a week or two before 9/11.
Under 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, the under 2 weeks. This family just moved so fast out of the house. They left behind everything, cars, furniture, and everything. And it makes you wonder, like, wow, because the house, like you said before, is beautiful. I saw pictures of it. I didn't even know how big it was. It's tremendous. And basically left behind, I think, like 2 cars in the garage, a bunch of couches and sofas inside. I mean, lots of furniture. So they flew to Saudi Arabia. What happened was the FBI got a hold of these security videos, and all these cars that were driven by these Hamburg pilots were visiting Abdulaziz Al-Hijj, even sometimes smoking dope with him, weed and stuff like that. And so the FBI basically interviewed the Al-Hijj family and said that they had absolutely no links to the Hamburg cell, never saw them before, and never did nothing. Now, there was a reporter out of Florida named Anthony Summers who basically knew a counterterrorism source who told them back in 2000, I think 11, that the FBI had provided proof, not just to the Department of Justice, showing a link between the Saudi government, the Al-Hijj family, and the Hamburg cell, but they had pictures to go along with it, because when they ripped the video out of the studio cameras, they had all these pictures of Ziad Jarrah, Marwan al-Shia, Mohammed Atta, all the very same people that Abdulaziz Al-Hijj basically said he never met. Meanwhile, they're in his house, smoking weed with him, hanging out with him for a number of days. Yeah.
Dude, could you imagine one of those parties, like what that was like? What kind of music do you think they listened to, Eric?
They had
techno.
Yeah, they had like house rave.
Desert Rose by Sting and Cheb Menby.
Yeah, Desert Rose by Sting, exactly.
Yeah, and that wow. the hijackers in Florida, Adam, has always fascinated me. I've been very much into Daniel Hopsiger's research since college, and there's other people down there. There's a lawyer down in Florida. I forget his name, but he's done some really interesting on the ground work, like visiting these, like a cell phone store that the hijackers were at, places they used to hang out at, and just the fact that when Atta shows up in July of 2000. Wally Hilliard's plane gets busted with 43 pounds of heroin. I mean, that's another nugget that just is like so underreported and just not even known about or understood, that out of all the flight schools these guys could have been sent to or could have chosen to train at, it's at Huffman Aviation, which isn't too far from Sarasota. And there's all these drug running connections. So it just opens up another portal of intrigue that goes back to Iran-Contra and even way before that, really.
Yeah, you know what? Also, too, is that at the same time, not to just pick on the Arabs here, Israeli intelligence actually was monitoring these individuals in Florida. And there's a memo out there. I know I said this before. I'll say it again for the people in the room. There's a memo that I'd love for you to read. It's called the Gerald Shea Memo. And he's actually a retired lawyer in California, San Obispo, I believe. He actually, on his own dime, did a private investigation into the art student ring that was out actually all throughout the Southwest and Northeast that were following members of the Hamburg cell. In fact, for those who don't know, when the dancing Israelis got caught on East Rutherford Parkway and arrested by Scott DiCarlo and Des Ravelli, one of the individuals that were arrested in the truck had a license that was traced back to Hollywood, Florida, which was 30 miles north of where Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shia were staying in. And so that shows you a link that they were close by to these people. Well, the Gerald Shea memo went a little bit further. And what they did was basically show 250 and more agents within this art student ring were basically all throughout, not just Florida, but in Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and Maryland. And they were all using moving front companies, like these moving companies. They were legit, they were small, but they were fronts for these Israeli art students who basically were operatives. And some of them actually turned out to have intelligence with signals intelligence.
Right.
And so they were living close by to these people all the time. And on top of them, you have the Saudis. Now, the question is, were they working together, the Saudis and Israelis, or were they running their own operations separately? I don't know, because we'll never get to know, because we deported all these people on immigration visa violations.
If Robbie Martin does drop in, Mike, he's really got the goods on all that, all the movement of the Israelis mirroring the hijackers. I mean, maybe Adam, you know about this too. I mean, some of the Israelis lived in New Jersey too, while some of the hijackers were there, and they were watching them, right? Not just Florida.
Yeah, this is, you're absolutely right. In fact, I wrote an article. All I did was basically take the FBI redacted memos about the dancing Israelis and put it in chronological order and filled in the blanks. It's one of my longest articles, but it basically shows that there were actually Israelis in New Jersey that I think rented a Ryder truck or something like that, rented a moving truck to try and free like these two Israelis that were caught in a urban moving systems vehicle, and that it was stolen or something like that. I don't quote me on the details, but I think that's basically the case. So they go there with this bail money, and I think it was the summer of 2001, and basically go there, and they're actually detained at the same time for some crime or something like that. And what happened was somebody big in New Jersey that they knew freed them all, got them all out. And we don't know who that is because the name is redacted.
Yeah. Right.
It wasn't Chertoff, was it?
So
if he has a house in New Jersey, I don't know, I guess. But
it wasn't Chris Christie. He was trying to investigate the Kushners, and that did not go so well. That did not. The Kushners are a mafia unto themselves that a lot of people don't
Reed,
realize.
did you get a turnout today in Concord? Did people come out?
Yeah, share the screen with you in a second here. Try to show you a picture.
Little baby McGardle, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get a picture up on the screen. But yeah, there were probably like around 100 people there, I'd say. Maybe a little less than that. But unfortunately it was mostly inside baseball. There weren't a lot of like viewers there. It was all us, like it was a lot of but I spoke, Justin O'Donnell spoke, Jeremy Kaufman spoke, Derek Poulot spoke, and Ben Weir spoke. I don't know. I know you guys know some of those people. And it was good. Here, I'm finding the picture right now.
Yeah, there were some Fenton people there too, Reed. Bruce Fenton.
Yeah, actually, one of our old mutual friends, Kathy Peterson. I haven't seen her since the Tulsi days, but she was there, so we had a reunion. That was great. She's awesome. She's based.
Yes. So Reed was at a thing today about supporting Defend the Guard, which is to basically get state power to stop the Fed from sending our National Guard troops overseas to die in these Middle East wars and fighting these wars of adventure.
Right
into 9/11, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I basically what Defend the Guard legislation does is it makes it illegal for the federal government to send National Guard troops to war unless they actually declare an official war, which hasn't happened. So I was corrected. In my speech, I said that hasn't happened since December 8th, 1941. That's not actually correct, because December 8th, 1941 is when we declared war on Japan, but we actually did declare war in 1943. It was all the same war as part of World War III, but we ended up expanding the declaration of war to a few other countries in 1943. But since 1943, 79 years ago, we have not officially declared war anywhere, like Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, none of it. It's all been police action or use of military force, but never actually a declared war.
Or proxy.
Yeah. Well, even those aren't declared wars.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll fund somebody or something, but we'll never actually congressionally declare it. And it takes a 60% majority, or 60% majority or whatever, to actually declare war. And you're really putting your ass on the line when you put your name on a declaration of war and you're representing your state or your district, depending on if you're a congressman or a senator or whatever. So it's a big deal when you actually declare a war. So this at least slows things down. In my opinion, it doesn't even go far enough, but it's a great it's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I remember one of the memes of Hurricane Katrina back in 2005 was that the National Guard was not available to help people of New Orleans because they were in Iraq. They were in the Middle East. So
yeah, that was brought up today, actually.
Oh, yeah. What's the percentage, Reed, of of National Guard's service members that are actually involved in all these wars, around the world. Isn't that part of the campaign? It's actually a larger percentage than people even realize, like maybe 60% or something like that.
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest, so I can't say that statistic with certainty. But yeah, it's very high. So.
That's why I loved Ron Paul's letter of marque when he wanted to privatize the operation to go get bin Laden after 9/11. He's like, wow, we'll spend about 30, 50 million. We could hire some bad dudes to go over there and find the 6'6" tall Muslim on dialysis with a cane in some cave in Afghanistan. Kind of based, actually. It's like, all right, maybe we want Eric Prince for one thing. We'll get Eric Prince for one. We'll give him and his Blackwater ghouls $30 million to go get bin Laden's head and put it on a silver platter and serve it with Big Macs to everybody. Okay,
we're going to put bin Laden's. Excuse me. We're going to put his head on a charcuterie board. Okay, it's 2022. Yeah. We're going to have some hummus. We're going to have carrots. We're going to have pita bread. It's going to be tremendous. Adam, is it true, Adam? You might be able to speak to this. That bin Laden was actually in Pakistan on September 10th, the night before 9/11, being protected by Pakistani, brass. Has that been debunked, or is that actually? What do you think about that story?
He was on the border of Afghanistan, where, if we're going by the historical documents, that we know that he actually was in Afghanistan. But then, when the U.S. military invaded, one of the first things he did was he was with Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri and Suleiman Abu Ghaith, who's a media and military committee leader, and basically they did a public video, which through their media arm called As-Sahab Media, released a video condemning the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. So afterwards, after they did that video, they basically he left to Waziristan, and some of his own family went to Iran because he felt that they would be safer in Iran than they would be in Afghanistan, because they would be sought out and killed. But in Iran, which is not an ally to bin Laden or the Saudis, they basically put them under house arrest. And so what the Iranians did was basically they got his son Saad bin Laden and one of his wives, and they basically met U.S. officials in 2002 or 2001, late 2001, and said, we will give you bin Laden's family for free with nothing in return. And the Americans turned it down. And the reason why is because I like to think that with Al-Qaeda in Iran, they basically say, aha, you see, they're harboring terrorists. Isn't that what the Fox News article that came out just a couple of days ago saying Iran was harboring Al-Qaeda,
Yeah, we have to go to war with Iran. And even Mike Pence was pushing that bullshit just a year or two ago. I don't know if you saw anything about that, but Pence was trying to say, Iran was involved in 9/11. And Pence was a member of Congress when 9/11 happened. And he had there's an interesting clip of him on Capitol Hill, either talking about the attacks or anthrax. I forget the exact details, but people forget, man. Pence, they talk about the swamp and the deep state. Dude, that dude is swamp and deep state. That dude's been in the muck for a long time. But
yeah, it just goes to show you that they'll use even terrorists for their own gain. Like they'll keep them alive. For example, I was
moderate
talking about
terrorists.
You're
what does it read?
Moderate terrorists.
Moderate, yeah.
Moderate,
John McCain type.
Moderate rebel.
Exactly.
Terrorist light, moderate Syrian rebel, unbelievable.
They are the Bud Light of terrorism, okay? 1 calorie, just not enough, but almost enough to make sure the operation happens, quite frankly.
I told this story to a podcast for New American Century a while back, and they didn't know about it. And a lot of people don't know what I'm going to tell you. You probably never heard of it. But what I'm going to tell you is that there was an operation called Jawbreaker. You've heard of that. And it was led by a CIA case officer named Gary Bernstein, who wrote the book, predictably, Jawbreaker. And what he said was that when they were making inroads to against bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and they were just destroying them in a few weeks' time, they had bin Laden surrounded. And they actually had him in a place called the White Mountains, which is a back entrance into Pakistan. It's right near the border of Afghanistan, Pakistan. And it's high up in the mountain area. And they had him surrounded. But they had this one back channel into Pakistan, which wasn't guarded. So Gary Bernstein actually put a call into the State Department and said to Tommy Franks, who's leader of SOCOM, basically said, hey, listen, I think we only need 200 special forces fighters and we could kill bin Laden right now. Tommy Franks, who's acting on behalf of the Bush State Department, said no, use the Afghans. And the problem with that is the Afghans, with the right amount of money, will turn on you in a second. And so Bernstein knew about this, said, no, we can't trust them. Just send 200 fighters. I'll even take 100. And that was rejected too. There's another Special Forces fighter by the name of Dalton Fury. It's a nom de guerre. And basically said that he had an idea. We'll just saturate the roadways in the back with landmines so they couldn't get out. And if they're walking, they're driving real slow, we can drop drone strikes on them and kill them all. That plan was rejected. Then he made another plan that they would take oxygen tanks on the backs, climb up the mountains all the way to the tops, meet bin Laden in the back way and block off the back. That plan was rejected. Days later, now this is where the real boom comes in. Days later, Gary Bernstein, who made all this progress in destroying Al-Qaeda near the point of total death, is replaced out of all of a sudden. And replaced with who? Of all people, the chief of station, of Alex Station, Richard.
Tell me, Kofor Black.
Richard Blee. And who does he bring with him?
Alfredo Burkowski.
Michelle and Casey, the lead of the Yemen Hub. And Gary Bernstein wrote in his book saying this. The reason why they replaced me with them is so they don't have to be interviewed by the 9/11 Commission or the Joint House Inquiry regarding what? Intentional withholding of information leading to Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi that we talked about with Reed and you guys before regarding the CIA protection of them, which led them to the attacks of the hijacking of Flight 77.
Wow.
Unreal.
Man, I mean, honestly, dude, the friggin' USS Cole bombing is related to 9/11, and John O'Neill was investigating that shit, who ironically dies on 9/11 at the World Trade Center trying to help people on his second or third day as the security chief at the towers, which is another reason I wanted to invite Ray Nowosielski on tonight. He wrote a fantastic book called Watchdogs Didn't Bark, and has done extraordinary research. And that's a whole another part of this. But like, how are we supposed to believe that the NSA or the CIA when they say, "Oh, we didn't know," or we got this email or we got this telegram or this page and we just didn't open it, so we weren't able to look at it and tell our FBI counterparts. That all falls apart when you look at all that stuff, I think.
Yes, it does. Ray Nowosielski, by the way, and John Duffy deserve a ton of praise. They barely are ever mentioned at all, and I must say that personally myself, I've learned more about Richard Blee and Michelle Ann Casey from them than anybody else in the world. They also, in my opinion, produced the single most important podcast, which put them in a ton of trouble, which was called Who is Rich Blee? And they were the first people to uncover these names, which was a ginormous. I couldn't tell you how huge this was. And basically, Kofor Black, and I think George Tenet, and people in the counterterrorism unit basically wrote letters saying, don't you dare publish those names. And we're talking about really Kofor Black,
Jesus.
Dangerous.
There's some scary fucking people out there.
Yeah, well, that guy, forget it. I mean, he captured Carlos Jackal. I mean, shit.
Right.
So basically,
he's a hard dude.
Yeah. Oh man, he's like Dracula. So they published the names anyway, knowing full well the CIA is going to be on their ass.
They're going to want their heads will roll, Reed.
Oh my goodness, it takes guts to do that.
Yeah.
Guts. And I'm forever thankful that they did.
So what was that called, and where could we see that or listen to it?
Oh, I have it on. I have the audio uploaded on my channel. It's called Who is Rich Blee?
Okay.
And it's a 47-minute podcast, I want to say, and it is the single most important podcast I've ever heard.
Folks, if Adam Fitzgerald's saying it's important, you better listen to it. You better get right with it. Get right with the Lord. Get right with Richard Blee. koforblack.com/gov/CIA.
By the way, sorry guys, I was distracted there. I was actually helping Ryan because Empire Unmasked got pirated onto Odyssey. And I know the guys at Odyssey, so Ryan sent me the link, and I was sending it over. So apparently, the only way you can get a hold of Odyssey easily is through Twitter. And obviously, Ryan doesn't have Twitter. So I have some of those guys' phone numbers because I know them from, because I know Drew Hancock and Jeremy Kaufman, who he doesn't work with Odyssey anymore, just Library, the bigger overall company, but just got it taken off. So Empire Unmasked is off of Odyssey because that's now that Ryan's not on YouTube, he put a bunch of stuff behind paywalls because he can't make money any other way.
People should pay to watch that, man. That is Ryan's years and years of original research.
Yes.
And going hard in the paint and digging up shit. And he should be paid for that, for people to see that. Yep. So that's great, Reed. You were able to just do all that while you're here with us in the street.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
well, there's not much I can add when Adam's here. Like when I'm on, I mean, I know Adam, you're a humble guy, but seriously, when I'm next to Adam, all I can do is like say, so Adam, tell us about this, and then go. I mean, if he says something, for me to be able to add anything onto it's a little ridiculous. I mean, he's kind of out of my league. So even
in our car ride, Reed, with Adam, I was reminded of stuff that I knew that I'd forgotten about, and I learned so much.
Yeah,
and it's recommended, folks. If you can get a road trip together with some of your friends who are based and who give a shit, do it. Get in the car.
I've already forgotten the names of all the people of the Saudi transfer of money to Khalid Al-Madar and Nawaf Al-Hazmi. Like he just laid it out on my show not even an hour ago, and I already can't remember all their names. So I got to go back and watch it like 5 or 6 times and be like, okay, Basnan.
I have a crappy memory, and like I can remember
crappy memory.
I can't do
well, it's funny when he was trying to remember a name of some English. Some English name, some American name, and he's like, what is? But then he's like, Mohammed Bosni al Basnan, like he'll remember all those like that, and then I'll be like, I think her name was
Joan
Jane. Jill? I can't remember. Like those are the ones he has trouble with. It's funny.
Oh, it's so good. No, that whole road trip just reinforced my belief in humanity, and then being at the Ron Paul conference. And Adam, you were getting recognized by people and Reed, and I was. It made me feel good to see that.
Yeah, it certainly did.
It reminded me that we are not alone, and that there are a lot of people who still care, and they appreciate the work that everybody here does. And what we were doing is
based group of people. Like when it was you, me, Adam, Dave DeCamp, and Patrick McFarlane all around the table. Like that's some anti-war energy right there.
Say it, Reed. If there was ever going to be a drone strike called in, it would have been at that hotel that night.
You know what we were? We were the Libertarian Malaysian Summit meeting.
Oh, that's so good, dude. That's the line of the day. Right
Eric, if they drone strike us,
clip that.
They just
clip that Twitter.
Just hit Adam, and he's so much taller than the rest of us.
They could see me from their aerial photos.
Right.
What's this 7-foot tall thing? Is that a guy or was it a tree? What is that? That's the 9/11 tree, 9/11 Truth Tree of Life. Adam Fitzgerald.
He's building 7. Adam Fitzgerald. It was just
the Freedom Tower.
That's a tree beard from the 2 towers.
That's so good, Adam. We were the 9/11 Truth Libertarian Malaysians.
That's what we were, the Libertarian Summit meeting. And sitting next to Dave DeCamp is amazing. And Patrick McFarlane, I can't believe it. And they were fantastic. People, one thing I do want to say is I don't know who said it before about egos. It's unfortunate with 9/11, and I've seen it all the time. There's a lot of egos. And, this is the reason why I try to be as accessible as possible, because when I first started, there was nobody. Justin Raimondo was, late, and, Ryan Dawson was in Japan. I had nobody really. And basically I said, if I ever got to that point where they were, I wanted to be accessible as I can to the public, because, it helps to talk to somebody about this stuff. And then when I see people like Patrick McFarlane and Dave DeCamp, and I'm like, wow, these guys are Libertarian Institute, freak's sake. And they were human, just like me. They were, very friendly, open up. You don't have to be intimidated by these people. They were great to deal with. And they're geniuses, those 2 guys, man. It's just unreal. All those people, Scott Orton and all
that was Mondo synergy. And then, Ron Paul, just to bring it all home for us at the end.
Yeah, really.
87 years old, Reed, how well he moves for his age. When you see him,
he's sentient. He knows what he's talking about.
How slight he is. He's adorable.
Yeah. Dude, when he schooled Giuliani though at that debate, come on, you want to go back to something on 9/11 where they tried and everything Ron Paul said has just aged incredibly.
Oh, he's a prophet. Dr. Ivan Paul. That's that's what he is. I mean,
Ronald,
I was, when I came away from it, I was like, my God, he's like 88. He's still like energetic. He's like full of life. And I'm like, it's not a fake with him. In other words, this guy really believes everything he's saying and he's with it. Like he resonates with young people because one thing I saw too, there was a lot of young people there.
Yeah.
A lot of kids. Kids with
That's why I said sentient, because I'm not even sure that Joe Biden is sentient, anymore. He's so like,
well, I would
maybe
remember
in the shower he is. But.
Is it Mike?
Well, with Ashley, sure. I told Ashley about my meeting with General Mahmoud Ahmed from the ISI, and I said, "Look, man."
My God!
I grabbed him by his turban. I said, "Look, man, he had a pizza checkered rug on his head, whatever that is." I said, "Look, you and Ahmed Gul better get with the program, Buster. I'm gonna put some head and shoulders on your hair, God damn it, and we're gonna rein you in. We're gonna rein you in. You and the ISI are gonna. I'm gonna sniff your dandruff. I'm gonna sniff the ISI's dandruff." And no, there's a great clip of Biden talking about that on the Senate floor about Pakistan coming to heel and deciding who they're going to be friends with. And then there's a clip of him on, I don't know if it was like a C-SPAN call-in thing or whatever that morning call-in thing is. And you look at that clip, that's a 21-year-old clip. He was way more coherent than he is now. Like he's basically just a mixture of Leslie Nielsen and the Naked Gun films and Inspector Clouseau, add dementia and a lot of brain plaque and a lot of bombs dropped. He's that now. But back then when he's always been a gangster.
Gangster Brandon, Mike.
Dude, Gangster Brandon, I mean, you add that all up, man. The dude's part of the 9/11 cover-up, man. So is Senator John Keel, that guy, the dude with the white hair with the big forehead. He met with the Pakistani ISI guy as well. Cornyn. Maybe I'm thinking of Mahmoud Ahmed, who's since passed.
John Cornyn from Texas.
Porter Goss was a congressman before that. He was a CIA dude. And I think he was head of the CIA at one point.
Yes, he was director. He met Mahmoud Ahmed in New York. He was meeting with Bob Graham, Porter Goss, and Mahmoud Ahmed. They were talking about Bin Laden on September 11, 2001.
They were having brunch at him. I think they were having Pakistani croissants and they were having scrambled eggs and slices of nice fresh fruit. And they saw they saw everything happen and they were like, "This is a disaster. We have no idea."
They had pieces of Daniel Pearl's head in the crepes, if you can believe it.
How is it that 1/5 of the funding for the attacks were facilitated by this guy? And I had breakfast with him, and he was a great guy. He was a really good. He was a really good guy. But that's like another part of it that's so crazy is the ISI chief that Biden's asked about. You can still find the clip somewhere online. And he's like, Biden's all trying to be Delaware Amtrak tough. He's like, I said, "Look, man, you got to make it." I grabbed him by the scruff. I grabbed him by the scruff of his neck. I grabbed him. I sniffed his wife right in front of him. I said, "Listen to me, Abu. Listen to me, Laden." As I sniffed his wife. I got a big woof of that. I felt awful. And I said, "Listen to me, Laden. You're going to come to heel, or you're going to see Uncle Joe's boot on your neck with a big, tasty daisy cutter. You're going to get daisy cut." So, yeah, that's Brandon in a nutshell, man. People don't even realize that,
Shit, you listen here, Aladdin.
Listen to me. I don't care how many genies you rub out of your lamp. He's being the old school uncle, the racist, the old school, like he's like an Archie Bunker racist. Brandon's just as racist as Trump is. Like this whole thing about how
way more
Trump's a racist. Dude, Brandon's like, you give me a fucking break, dude. Are you kidding me? He's like, you can't go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts without detecting a slight Indian accent. I'm serious.
Yeah. Brandon's kind of based. I kind of want to get him on Tower Gang. I think he'd be a lot of fun. Like if he had no one like kind of keeping him in line or no teleprompter, you got him on Tower Gang and started talking about certain groups of people, he'd probably go off the handle a little bit. So,
I was sucking on Jill's finger the other night. I thought to myself, I got to go visit the Saudis. Trump had his hand on the globe. He had the sword. I got to do something with them, So he's
listen here, Aladdin.
Listen, Aladdin. Listen, fat. Listen to me, you rug merchant. Listen here, fat. Yeah, he just drops. Yeah, he's just.
But Mike, he had breakfast with the ISI chief, didn't he? Or he met with him?
Porter Goss and Bob Graham did, who headed up
Biden too, though, right?
Well, Biden met with him, and so did Condoleezza Rice, and she was asked about it by this based Indian reporter. Have you ever seen that clip, Adam?
No, I don't think I did. No.
Oh, dude. So there's this Indian reporter at the White House, or maybe it was over. I think it was at the White House, asking Condoleezza Rice in this press conference about meeting with Mahmoud Ahmed from the ISI, and she just like shrugs it off, like, I heard he was here, but I wasn't meeting with him, and she got bagged. So that footage exists, but the official White House transcript that they released totally edited out that question from that Indian reporter.
Oh, wow.
This is a mainstream Indian reporter who's like basically like our Associated Press, but that somehow that guy got into the White House. He was like in there, and it was like, why was he doing these things? And funny to hijackers, and why was you meeting with him? And it's like, dude, he's totally telling the truth. He's factually correct, and he had Condi, he had her dead to nuts on that. But
I mentioned the name to you, Adam, when we were at Duncan's there on our way back. Sunday morning, Reed got us up at 6. We were up nice and early. We were on the road by 7. What's the name of your alarm, Reed? The alarm setting?
It's Timmy Trumpet. What's the name of the song?
There's nothing
Freaks.
Fun about it.
Freaks,
There's nothing fun about it.
It gets you out of bed fast.
Could you maybe play it, Reed? I mean, could we?
Yeah, he queued up for us. And I mentioned Syed Sheikh to you, Adam, and you said that name gets left out a lot.
Is that right? My mind is shot. I don't know how I forget simple things, but can remember like complicated things. I
mean, granted, this was 7 a.m. We hadn't had our Dunkins yet. We were in the process of getting it. And,
I need my coffee.
And I said, Syed Sheikh, his name is. They don't mention his name a lot with the ISI wire transfer from Mahmoud Ahmed.
Omar Syed Sheikh.
It's like a triple or a quadruple agent.
Yeah, he's alive, isn't he? They let him out of fucking prison.
Dude, he's in house arrest.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right. I couldn't believe it.
What do we got here, Reed? I take showers with my kids every day in the Senate bath. Ashley's diaries for sale. I hope you really like reading that. Hunter's up awake and he's smoking lots of crack.
The mighty trumpet brings the freaks out to the floor.
Okay, God, make it stop, Reed. Make it stop.
Boy,
it gets worse too as it goes. It gets louder. And louder.
That goes off, and you're asking Adam about Syed Sheikh when that's going off.
Well, that goes off. Reed gets us up at 6 a.m. It's like we got to do this operation. We have to do it. We're our own Hamburg cell down there. Reed gets us up. That's what he uses, Mike, to get up in the morning.
That's horrifying.
But it worked. We were on the road by 7.
That's your alarm clock, Reed?
That's my alarm. That's why I kill it as soon as possible. I just hear ba da 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 da. I'm like,
oh my God.
Dude,
is that what the Dancing Israelis were listening to? Dominic Suter had Odette Elmer playing that in the van. I've got 3,500 in the sock on my left foot. I have box cutters and traces of explosives the dog smelled.
It's almost similar to the Oompa Loompa song. Oompa Loompa Loompa Dee Doo. It's almost like a 1950s sort of like theme song or something.
That's crazy.
But, Adam, that's the big thing. I should have written a list out, but the Dominic Suter urban moving systems is the biggest thing we probably. I mean, you can branch out to tons of shit on 9/11, but that's one I should have asked you about on my show. I kind of forgot. Well, I'll just have to do another show again. But
yeah, that's fine. There's a lot of history behind that. Man. I mean, that story about Pennsylvania in Pennsylvania is more illuminating to me than the damn Israelis.
Right.
Yeah, so someone associated Adam with urban movers and Dominic Suter, that top company. There was other moving companies, and Dawson has a real command on this stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you've looked at it. But basically, there was 2 of them driving in a van not far from the Shanksville site. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, these names. Now, I'll name the names because it's Roy Barak and Modi Butbul. Now, these guys basically worked in. When they were detained by the FBI found out that these guys, unlike the dancing Israelis, these guys actually worked for signals intelligence in Israel. So they had they were more important operatives than the dancing Israelis. Thing about these 2 guys basically are linked to a theory that I'm working on that I talked about in Reed's show regarding about Zaid al-Jarrah and his family, the Al-Jarrahs in Lebanon, and their links to Israeli intelligence. My theory is that Ziad al-Jarrah was never on the plane and that he's actually an Israeli operative because he's never really religious, lives separately from the hijackers, even lives in a hotel room away from the Muscle hijackers just 2 days before 9/11. Basically, his family is involved with Israeli intelligence. Ali Al-Jarrah, Asim Al-Jarrah, Joseph Al-Jarrah. And, guy is never a fundamentalist, doesn't fit it. There's actually a video out there, hard to get now, basically showing Ziad Jarrah doing his martyrdom will, and he's laughing in it. He can't hold a straight face.
You can find those for sale in New York City on the rugs with the Paris Hilton sex tape. You can get those, yeah.
Down in the Bowery.
Like price of $2 or something.
Down in the
But
Bowery.
yeah, basically, Roy Barack Modi Bhupal were driving from a client, I think either in Chicago, I always get this wrong, Chicago or Ohio, and they left on September 11th. They come back September 12th. They're detained because the Bolo's out for Urban Moving Systems trucks. And they are stopped in York, Pennsylvania, name of the town. So Pennsylvania State Police say, hey, what's your names? And do you work there? So to reassure that they work at Urban Moving Systems, they call Dominic Suter. They say, hey, do Roy Barack Modi Bhupal work for you? And he said, yeah. Did they actually move a client? They said, no, because due to the prior day's events, we didn't have a client outside the state of New Jersey. And he said, well, how do you explain this? And Dominic Suter says, it's strange, I can't. And so they're detained by the FBI, right? The FBI actually calls Dominic Suter for a second interview. Come on in. We want to talk to you. Now that we got these two guys, what does Dominic Suter do? Flees to Israel. Leaves behind the entire moving company. And John Miller was the first. Remember John Miller, 2020? He goes and does an expose. And it's probably the most important one of all. He goes inside the warehouse because the landlord of the warehouse opens up. And what did he find? An entire warehouse full of furniture, never delivered. There's a voice message machine, 99 plus calls. It's all the clients. Where's my furniture? They never delivered. Yeah. So the FBI basically went through all the computers they had, some small makeshift warehouse, 16 computers, 16 hard drives. And the only person to ever file a Freedom of Information request for it was John Masseria. And his request was denied. Instead, they gave him the FBI redacted reports and the East Rutherford police reports. That's where that came from.
Yeah.
What's the Freedom of Information Act that Ryan applied for? What was that one for?
That was alluding to, I think, the photographs. I want to say the additional photographs that weren't released, and that came from an account called Pepe the Frog or something like that on Twitter. It's like some fake profile, but he actually was successful.
Pepe got us the documents.
And Adam, I dropped that nugget on you that I know John Massaria in person.
Yes,
and
okay.
He was on set for my Jesse Ventura interview. It all comes full circle, Adam.
Actually, it's great you mentioned Jesse Ventura. We have a $5 chat here, Eric, from Kiwi Farmer. In honor of 9/11, can we get a Jackman Ventura rambling about the towers getting hit with space lasers and thermite? Governor Ventura, tell us about Judy Woods and the space lasers.
All I'm going to say is the Death Star was very active on 9/11, if you know what I mean. Judy Wood had reports about the Death Star being at DEFCON 4 mode. And nobody, Adam, why has nobody investigated that? Why has nobody looked into that? Judy Wood, I think, and Jim Fetz are the only ones who've looked at it. Okay.
Governor Ventura, where did they get enough energy to hit the buildings with the space lasers?
Well, one theory I have, and Donald Trump, and this is one area where me and him agree. Rosie O'Donnell was seen in many Golden Corral buffets in the tri-state area. So, excuse me, someone had to do something with all that gas and energy that Rosie O'Donnell had pent up. I think that she was seen in Lower Manhattan, and some dangle from Al Qaeda led her there, or the ISI, or Mossad, and they said, go down there to the World Trade Center after you eat Golden Corral and fart. And I think that's plausible. I'm not saying it's excuse me. I'm not saying it's definite.
You're just asking questions.
I'm asking a question. I'm saying it's plausible that Rosie O'Donnell's flatulence led to the collapse of all three towers on 9/11.
Yeah, the best part of Eric's impressions are when he does whether it's Trump or Ventura. Excuse me, and then
Yeah,
Ventura, excuse me.
Reed, excuse me. I was a Navy SEAL, so no matter what your argument is, you're gonna lose because I was a Navy SEAL.
Excuse me.
I was a Navy SEAL.
Adam, excuse me, Adam. I was a Navy.
When Phil from All That Remains, I was like, excuse me.
Excuse
And
me.
he's gone. Yeah.
But do you
We
guys
love
remember
him,
when
Mike?
remember when Rosie O'Donnell talked about Building 7 on The View? How fucking incredible was that? Did you guys ever see that?
I have. I couldn't
Dude.
believe it at the time. I couldn't believe it. What did
Now, you know-
by the way, Eric, Mike, let me ask you, when that happened, was it true that she got let go of The View because of that? Or
It wasn't long. I mean, she was clashing with Joy Behar, Hasselback, and I don't know if Whoopi was on there yet. She may have been. But yeah, I got to give it to Rosie, man. She brought up a lot of. She actually tried to get William Rodriguez on The View. There was some behind the scenes stuff.
Right? Wow.
Oh yeah,
that was-
we had Willie.
Now
Willie
we're
came. What's that, Adam?
Now we're talking, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's
Oh, dude. So, we had Willie come and speak at Eric's college back in like May of 2007.
Oh,
And there's footage of all that somewhere. I think I actually mentioned the ISI in my introduction, or I was interviewed that day and I mentioned the ISI, which is, of course, has nothing to do with the collapse of the towers. And that's where so much of the 9/11 stuff has been focused on. And we're mentioning Building 7. But, Rosie was friends with Willie. Oh, what, Reed?
I got to bounce. So,
Okay.
thanks for having me on. Sorry, I don't feel like I added much, but thanks for having me on.
I think just having Reed here was very comforting.
Was comforting, yeah.
It was very
read
comforting.
just yourself is always a pleasure. I mean,
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm the guy from antiwar.com. I wrote the book Enough Already. Time to end the war on terrorism.
Dude, that's a great Scott Horton. Folks,
we
Reed
did it
covered-
anyways. They did
Yeah,
it
say it, Mike.
anyways. They killed
they
all
were
of
like,
them.
we're
All
not
the
going
Bin
to fund
Ladenites came out of the woodwork.
What'd they say?
We're not
Mike?
going to send a crate. We're not going to send a crate of super soakers full of acid to all these Bin Ladenites, and they did anyways. And they had them in there, and they used the squirt guns full of acid that was in a crate from Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they killed all of them. But they armed the ones in the next fucking village, and it's like, what are you doing? And that's read the book and the War on Terror.
that's fantastic.
Do we love Lord Horton? We're going to have him on again.
Oh,
everything.
he's a treasure. He's
But
Yeah,
Reed,
Thanks, Reed, for coming on, man.
you're doing the Lord's
Yeah.
work, Reed. And your
Thanks
fucking
for
tweet
having me
about
on.
Megan McCain, man, dude. Thanks for having the balls to do that and
Oh
tell
my
the truth
God.
about
Me.
that piglet.
Some
That
people
war
are
on
like,
terror.
"Oh, you would never have made that if you had to put your name on it." And I was like, "Well,
Uh,
I kind of did."
Reed's
make
like
it
it's like
a few
either
times
me or
with
like
my name
one
on
other
it.
person. Yeah, Reed's like it's me or one other person. She's a little piglet. She's that song "War Pigs" by Black Sabbath. We should have a
That's
new one. It's
her.
called War Piglet. It's about her.
Yeah, we're Piglet.
Because we don't want to misgender her. But
Fuck.
guys, follow Reed Coverdale. Reed, where can people follow you? What do you got coming up? Bring us home.
Well, I just had the great Adam Fitzgerald on my show, and we talked about a lot of the same stuff that we talked about here. Go check that out. Styx, who just did his debate with Dave, he's actually coming on my show Tuesday morning.
No, dude, no way. I think he's in Vermont. Is he in Vermont?
No, he's in the Netherlands.
Dude, he's so based. he looks like the guy from that documentary, Great American Pitcher, or what's his name, Mark Bouchard.
Coven.
Well, we're gonna see how based he is. I'm gonna ask him about the bone saws and the dings and see what he says. So,
Oh boy.
And he's a big Trump supporter, right? He's like a big Trump guy.
Yeah. Well, I think we listened to his debate. He's like, I mean, he doesn't think Trump was good enough, but he supports him regardless. Like he thinks he's an improvement. In other words, Styx ideals are not what Trump was, but he thinks he was like about the best we could ever hope for, basically. But I'm not going to rehash the debate. I'm going to be talking about different stuff with him. So tune in for that. And if Tulsi Gabbard ever acknowledges my existence again in the future, she's welcome on at any time. So, but
Oh, that'd be great.
thanks, guys. I got to run. So,
Thanks, Reed. We'll see you soon, man.
Brother.
all right.
We'll see you.
Have a good one.
Aloha, take care. Is what we say.
Reed Coverdale, the host of The Naturalist Capitalist, Liberty Uniter, the host of The Four Horsemen. just a great guy and some a very young guy too. I think he's in his 20s. He's in his like late 20s.
He's like 28.
Is he? Oh, he's in his. He's a young pup.
Adam,
Oh,
you were like, how old are you guys? Reed's like, I'm 28, and I was like, I'm almost 36. You're like, God damn, I'm in my 50s. I'm in my
I'm
fucking
always
50s.
the oldest when I'm around somebody. I don't know how that works. This is no good.
It happens quickly. It happens very quickly.
I'm like the Mr. Magoo of 9/11. This is no good.
It is, man. It's serious information, but you do have to have a sense of humor about it. And over the years, we've done conferences with 9/11 survivors, family members, and that's a common thread of behind-the-scenes conversations that I've had with a lot of them, is that you will lose your mind if you don't have a sense of humor about this stuff. And, because it is so horrific and so real and in everyone's face. But the whole never forget adage, hashtag never forget, I think doing stuff like this is really how you honor that, how you really never forget.
Oh, yeah. You do honor when you talk 9/11 in the context that it deserves. You actually honor the fallen and the victims of it, regarding the seriousness of the nature. And you know what? It's good to do videos and stuff like that, but I'm not content on just doing videos because I actually want to go to court. And to try to do that, I'm going to try and ascertain as much information as I can to build a case against somebody. But if you're just going to do videos and basically talk about the fringe conspiracies and what's hot and what's not, I mean, that's fine too. But I mean, don't sit there and say you're actually doing activism while you're doing it. You're not. You're actually doing more harm than good because you're keeping alive these theories, or basically ruins the movement that you're trying to build. And one thing about my channel is that what I'm trying to do is basically share information in the hopes of getting other people to open up their channels, and then they reach a bigger audience. And that's how you build a real truth movement, a truth movement involved with people that have facts and information and not just beliefs and conjecture, because you can't do anything about that. With facts and conjecture, something tangible, you can actually go to court and make a difference. And then you can honor the victims of September 11, 2001 that way.
Definitely, Adam. And I think, there's a great quote, honor the dead with the pursuit of the truth. And that, to me, has always been, I relate that to the Iraq War. I relate that to 9/11, these two big events in my lifetime. And that's for the family members, the first responders, the people who died on 9/11, and the people that have died since from the health issues from Ground Zero, which we weren't even able to get into tonight. Our troops who have been killed in the Middle East based on those lies, and all the people in all their sovereign countries that were invaded based on the pretext of that day who have lost their lives. That's really what this is all about. It's such a big global thing. And, you still have family members fighting. I mean, you have all those family members who were protesting outside of Trump's golf course just a month ago.
Right.
With the Saudis that were funding this they're trying to rehab their image and they're trying to run away from it. But the reality is there's still a court case going on. There's still lawsuits going on that the family members are involved in. The people who actually lost siblings, children, parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends on 9/11. That is still going on. It's not in the news every night. Obviously, we're doing this stream on the day of, so people might be hearing this information for the first time. But this is an ongoing thing, 21 years later, that is still relevant, still important, and it still matters. And it still impacts a lot of people. So that's why it's important to me. And that's why I'm going to continue to talk about it until, I'm just a brain in a jar or something in the metaverse.
For sure. Like gives me hope when I see people like yourselves, young people like yourselves, talk about the topic in the manner it deserves, because sometimes I tend to lose faith, and I'm a hopeless pessimist as it is. Yeah. Someone the other day called me the Robert Smith of 9/11, and I basically said, well, I probably agree with that a little bit in a way.
Minus the fucking wig and the makeup and
the sad face,
Halloween, Adam, you should dress like that for Halloween.
I should.
The thermal detonator, as
don't give me ideas. I'll be on the camera, singing like Plain Song with 9/11 in the background.
That's amazing. Wow. Did you ever see the clip of Robert Smith at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? It was in like 2019, and this young, beautiful, sassy reporter, this gal is all like, "Oh, it's amazing! You finally You're in Robert Smith, the Cure is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What do you think? He's like, yeah, I guess it's great. He's like, oh, that's great. Dude, he
Right.
can give two shits.
Yeah, he can't. He doesn't care
No, he
because
doesn't
awards
care.
don't mean nothing to him, right? And awards mean nothing.
But his work speaks for itself.
Oh,
And
it's
so
timeless.
does yours, Adam. And so people whose heart are in the right place with this stuff. It might
Well,
not be. It could be years down the road, man. The work always speaks for itself.
Well, I think you guys give me too much praise, but really, thank you very much. And I always love to come on your shows. You guys are a breath of fresh air, and it's something that is desperately needed. Even you spoke a lot of truth regarding depressing subjects that need to be humorized, and with a human face behind it, and it's so true.
Yeah, I think they do. It needs to be talked. It's not talked about enough. We're all in a stupor of sports and medication and our jobs and the reality that's put forth in front of all of us on the TV screen that we don't even.
But
speak to
we
this
all
stuff.
suffer the policies and the life conditions because of 9/11. Anybody who's traveled since that day, you're dealing with that when you go through TSA. TSA was created because of 9/11.
Right, exactly.
And there's so many people who travel now that were born after 9/11. They don't understand or know what a life was like traveling before that or living or existing before that.
Right.
And we do, and we won't forget it.
That's right. You shouldn't. And Fire Pixie, I saw that comment on the screen, and you actually aren't puke. You matter, and you're a person that does matter. And just because of you having interest in this subject brings me much needed hope and change for the future. Because like I said, I always think of the worst, and I'm like, nobody's really interested. I almost quit a couple of times. I just said, I just want to do away with this stuff. But when I see the Jackman brothers and I see Fire Pixie, you in the comments, I know who you are. I see you. And just because I don't acknowledge some of you by names, I know Eddie Grimm, I know Texid, I know Fire Pixie, JC. I see you guys, Bill Denmark. I do see you guys. And believe me, it's appreciative because you guys come to my videos a lot. You make comments and stuff. And I'm very, very appreciative and humbled even to anybody that even wants to show interest, much less vested interest in this very depressing subject. And you make me want to keep going, and it's worth it. It really is.
It is, and that's exactly it. It is worth it. It's worthwhile, and there's so much energy expelled towards meaningless, frivolous bullshit, and there are still a lot of people, as you saw at the Ron Paul conference. I'd say there was probably close to 500 people there.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
There's still a lot of people who give a damn and who know that we're lied to every day and that we're sold a bill of goods and that we can actually speak out against the warfare state, the empire, all the shit that's done in our name. Because you go around the world and, depending where it is, what country it is, and Americans are guilty of this too, other countries and other parts of the world have a perception of Americans and what we are all about and who we are. I really did my first big traveling in 2009. I went over to Sweden and to Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And, I stayed in a hostel with people in Stockholm, Sweden from like 6 or 7 different countries. And one of them was a young French guy who was my age. And he was so refreshed to hear my critiques of George W. Bush and the war on terror in the Iraq war. And this was the first time he ever met an American face to face who said the French government was absolutely correct in not joining that coalition to destroy Iraq and murder over 1 million people. So we have, it can have an impact, man. And that moment wasn't lost on me. It was refreshing because, we have the propaganda that's given to us and hurled at us and weaponized and day in and day out all the time. It's just on a constant gristmill. And if you're not aware of it and if you're not on guard about it, man, it does your thinking for you. And that's what happens to so many Americans and people around the world. But that was a moment I'll never forget, man. It was interesting because that Frenchman had a view of Americans of like a George Bush caricature, gunslinging Western.
Right.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Right.
So
and then you come along and change that whole perception.
Yeah. I said the war in Iraq is disgusting. It's a disgrace. I'm ashamed of what my government did.
Right.
I'm horrified by it, and I will use every bit of power and energy and platform and resource I have to speak out against it, and show you that there are a lot of Americans who are against it. We were against it then. We're against it now,
Right.
and we've always taken a stand against war and the killing of innocent people.
And that's what's the unifying aspect of the Ron Paul Libertarian Institute is anti-war, and something I can agree with and then go along with. And not just the Iraq war, but any war. I mean, any war in general. So we're not just flash in the pans. We really mean it. But we need a lot more people on our side to join us. And, I think there are. I think there's a lot of people in the fence. They don't know what to do regarding joining sides. But you don't have to join a side. You don't have to choose poison, so to speak. You know what? There is a way out of that game. And you have to just detach yourself from the proverbial IV in your arm that's feeding you about all this blue and red political divide, what sex you are, what religion you are, what race you are. You know what? None of that matters. You know what? You were born a human being without any divisive worldviews. You're taught this later on, just like it alludes to the Matrix itself later on, that the world isn't shaped the way it is. And if you just get rid of this arm and you saw the world for what it really is, which is one big gray ball, then you can understand people better and accept them for what they are. But as soon as more people unplug from this proverbial IB, we're going to be stuck in this for a little while. But with people like yourselves, Jackman Brothers and Reed and Dave Smith and a lot of other people like Dave DeCamp and Kyle Lanzalone and all those guys, I think we have hope. And that's why I went with you guys to Libertarians, because I wanted to see what you guys were really about. And I really came away impressed. And I'm not impressed by a lot of much. When I saw a lot of young people and I saw how you treat people, I said, I'm going to hitch my ride with these guys.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful, Adam. I appreciate that. And the libertarians are not perfect. I'm not a member of the party, but I align with them. I'm adjacent to them, and I support what they're doing. And, at this point, I plan on voting for them. Say what you will about voting. I've voted with them in the past. I'll probably do it again for the upcoming midterms and
I'd vote for
election.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just that deeper way of looking at things and thinking about it, and being concerned about what is being done around the world, and taking a stand against what the permanent Washington warfare state has done. So that's awesome. Mike, I appreciate you putting this together today, man. This was all Mike. The stream was all Mike today.
Mike, you're the man. You're the man.
Hey, thank you guys. You guys are great, and it's big picture stuff, and the Libertarian Party and their platform, they're just right on about it. I mean, they always have been, and maybe they haven't had the best messengers, and I mean, in all fairness, they always get denigrated and treated like shit in the media and by all the political class, who are always wrong. The Democrats and Republicans are always allowed to be wrong over and over again for decades. I mean, I've been here 35 years, and they've been wrong my entire life about everything, about every big issue of consequence.
Right.
All of our foreign policy adventures or misadventures, really. I mean, it's not people who say, well, Bush made a mistake with Iraq. No, it wasn't a mistake. That was a very deliberate, calculation. And it wasn't Bush so much that was behind it as it was, his father and people from his cabinet, like Dick Cheney and Brent Scowcroft and, Wolfowitz and Bremer and all those neocons who have been around behind the scenes. And they're still around. I mean, they're still very much involved with the Democratic Party. And they don't care who they have to align with as long as they get the outcome that's desired for them. And, right now, the Libertarian Party and like Reed's tweet, man, that was a shot across the bow, dude. That's like that moment in the movie 300 when one of those soldiers throws that spear and it hits the king with his nose piercing and his fucking gold gaudy shit he's got going on. Whoa, he wounded me a little bit. There's a little blood coming off my cheek. That's what that moment reminded me of.
Yes, that's a great analogy, by the way. That's a great
analogy.
I
mean, that's
God
really what it
can bleed. Yes, he can.
It's like Arnold said in The Predator, if it bleeds, I can kill it. And it's the system is so fragile, man. They're propped up by illusion. They're propped up by an appeal to authority and the power. It's the power that we give them. Okay, they're not powerful. They don't know anything. Most of them are fucking stupid and incompetent and a bunch of bumbling, blubbering jackasses who don't have anything behind them other than the perceived and fictitious power that we give them and that we allow them. That's the only power that they have. They don't have any power. They don't have any art or poetry or sympathy or any kind of humanity behind them. They're a bunch of bloodthirsty fucking vampires who prey off of people all across the world and their fears. And it's been exposed time and time again. And it's so fictitious and so frivolous and just a vapid fucking illusion, really. It's like the, Wizard of Oz or the Emperor Has No Clothes, whatever analogy you want to call it. That's really all it is. And that whether it's the war on terror, the last couple of years with COVID 1984, everything they've done in the name of trying to keep us safe and protect us, and we know what's best for you. It's all a lie. It's all bullshit. It's all about consolidating their power, enriching their pockets and their cronies and their friends and their agenda, and that's it. And they want to pit the rest of us against each other, and they've been doing that for my whole fucking life. And for me, it's very obvious, but maybe not for a lot of people. But that's how I see it, and I think 9/11 was their catalyst for the last couple of decades, and that's why it's still important to talk about.
Mike, that's gospel. I can't add anything to that, brother.
That's how I feel.
Right,
that's how I feel about it.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're coming up on almost an hour and 35, and I'm sorry for the audience or anyone else who thought we were going to have other people joining. I invited them, and it didn't happen, but I want to do more panels like this. I mean, I think we should do a 9/11 show once a month where it's just we have a panel, we have we have experts or people who are familiar with this topic to come on and just continue to talk about it. It shouldn't just be on the anniversary, and obviously we don't just talk about it on the anniversary, but that's when the most people are paying attention, unfortunately. So that's what we got to do.
True. But yeah, I agree with that. It's something I'm trying to think of myself. Like, I try to do as much content as possible. I try to interject everywhere, written or video, or even uploading files and documents every day. But yeah, I love the idea of maybe once a month, something to do with 9/11. Because with 9/11, there's so many things you could go into, the lead up to it, what came after it, what's coming from it, what happened on the current day. There's so much. I mean, you could go and talk about so many different things about 9/11 itself, and it's just it's never ending. And plus, too, every single day that passes after 9/11, there's new things that we learned about it too.
There's disclosure. Yeah, there's some disclosure. There's a little bit of nugget that comes out on page 6 or page 7. I mean, tonight I wanted to kind of talk about the war games. We didn't even really get into the war games. I don't know if that's
There's a great conversation starter. Right.
That's a whole episode. So
sure.
Yeah, why don't we plan on that? Because I've never asked you. Well, I've never gotten your full take, Adam, on the war games, because I've heard different things from other people I respect and trust about 9/11 information, and I would love to hear the Adam Fitzgerald treatise on the war games. But folks, you're going to have to tune into another episode for that.
Thank you, JC, for the sticker, the chat. Yeah, so I mean, September 11th, 2022. I'm glad we did this. I didn't want to just argue with people on social media or Facebook or talk about it on a thread. I wanted to do a show about it and a live stream, and that's really the whole point of Jacqueline Radio, is to talk about these big issues and be able to have a long form conversation and really kind of get into some of the nitty gritty, in a very real way. So, Adam, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You guys are a treasure, and I will always come on your show, and I'm always humbled when you ask me to, and I can't thank you both enough for having me on. I really don't.
Absolutely. Well, Adam is the host of The Darkened Hour. You go on YouTube, type in Adam Fitzgerald. You can find all his videos. He's on Facebook. He's available. He's up at all hours looking at this stuff, folks. He's studying this stuff around the clock. He's got the brain for it.
Yeah, I'm a Dracula. I can't sleep. I think I'm going to be 90 years old, just shaking my head. Osama bin Laden.
But also, folks, Adam is a lot of fun to hang with and to party with, and to be.
I just need a little motivation. That's it, I guess.
To be with in real life. If you could have been at our Malaysian summit down there in Virginia, you would have loved it. But
do you think the CIA and the FBI were watching the Ron Paul summit, or do they even care at this point?
Would it shock you if that was the case?
Spot the glowy.
Right, but no, being serious, would that shock you if that was the case?
We were right in their backyard. I pointed out to you guys. We drove past the exit where the CIA was there on our way to Dulles to where the
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I forgot. That's
and,
right.
and Adam, we weren't far from NSA.
Yeah, we weren't far. Right.
That's like that scene in JFK where Kevin Costner as Jim Garrison is on the street where Guy Bannister's office is with the CIA. He's like,
CIA right over there.
Oh,
FBI.
yeah, that's right.
Naval-
And he's
naval
putting out
intelligence.
the US right,
Do it, Mike.
exactly. Oh.
I don't know all the lines, but he's like, doesn't it strike you a little bit odd that Guy Bannister, former FBI, John Bircher's office is right here on this street, and around the corner is where Lee Harvey Oswald was doing the fair play for Cuba? Doesn't that strike you a little bit odd, boys? That dog don't hunt. That's a whole other.
It was
Fire
fun,
Pixie, we love you.
I think there'll be something again, Adam. There'll be another trip or a conference or something. And I even floated this to Reed. I think it would be amazing if Mike and I and all of us could put together a conference with the best and the brightest, and what we know, and we could get a conference center and do our own thing. So
That'd be cool.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it's something to plan for next year, because Mike, you and I we have experience doing this kind of shit. We've planned conferences and brought a lot of people together.
Yeah, we did a conference in Keene in 2008, and we were really the first one to veer away from controlled demolition. And we caught a lot of flack from the local truth community and the 9/11 truth movement to not just focus on controlled demolition. But we had like Barry Zwicker, we had Daniel Hopsiker, Sandra Hicks, Michelle Little, Bob McIlvain. We had some great people there with a lot of great information.
Anyways, that's in the ether right now, but I think it's definitely something, you and I, Mike, we have experience putting things on and bringing people together.
Yeah, and if the audience likes that idea and wants to see something like that happen and wants to support, the physical space that we're going to be moving into this month, feel free to support us. But we love doing this. Thank you guys very much. And to everybody in the world that was affected by 9/11, I love you. I think about it all the time, and we're never going to stop. Cheers.